And there were plenty of reports of white powder, the protective layer around the elevator hoistways to place the explosives on the core columns and beams. The evidence will assist us in the disbelief process, because the disbelief carries us to, well, they couldn't have gotten away with it. Our government wouldn't have done this to us. Well, we're not saying your government did this to us. We're asking for a new investigation based on the scientific evidence so that we can find out the real facts, so that we can determine who may be responsible and how we bring them to justice. After all, we've lost 1 million lives in Afghanistan and Iraq, which is based on this evidence. If we sit on our butts, nothing will happen, and we'll get what we deserve. What is that? Probably another 9/11 is being planned in order to further consolidate the controls that happened as a result of 9/11, such as the Patriot Act. The invasion plans for Afghanistan were signed by President Bush on September 10th, the day before 9/11, as documented by Newsweek. And we have the Military Commissions Act, the Homegrown Terrorism Act, all of which are designed to destroy our freedoms, and in the name of what? Safeguarding us from terrorists? Who are the terrorists? We've got some serious questions we're asking here.
There's something the media doesn't show you every day, huh? But you want to believe that it was these guys in caves, bearded people, dark-skinned. They're religious fanatics. Yeah. Hey, by the way, remember the first thing Obama's going to do when he gets in office? Got to show you one more time. It's a good 30-second piece.
It is the first thing I will do. I will get our troops home. We will bring an end to this war. You can take that to the bank.
He said that, by the way, on October 27th of 2007. First thing he's going to do. You can take it to the bank. What did he take to the bank? Banker bailouts. Took your grandchildren's money. You suckers. So anyway, what can I tell you about stuff, okay? Let's go over a little bit of surge info, just so you know. Up to 56,000 more contractors likely for Afghanistan, congressional agency says. Okay? This is from the Washington Post, and surge of 30,000 more U.S. troops to Afghanistan could be accompanied by a surge of 56,000 more contractors. Now, these are armed contractors, right? Remember Blackwater and stuff, okay? Because remember, what was it, the British that used the Hessians? Yeah, this sounds real good. When you start using mercenaries, that makes a lot of sense. So anyway, vastly expanding the presence of personnel from the U.S. private sector in a war zone, according to a study by Congressional Research Service. The tally could increase further if the new administration strategy includes more robust construction and nation-building efforts. Well, yeah. Why is it that Obama's doing the same thing Bush was doing? Maybe he works for this New World Order? Bush talked about it. Father Bush talked about it, you know. Prescott Bush had his assets frozen by the U.S. Congress. See if I'm wrong. For trading with the enemy, the Nazis in '42. So yeah, so your new Obama guy who's, you remember his promise?
It is the first thing I will do. I will get our troops home. We will bring an end to this war. You can take that to the bank.
He tells the truth just like Bush, doesn't he? So anyway, a hearing in Senator Claire McCaskill's Contract Oversight Subcommittee on Contracting in Afghanistan is highlighting some important stuff. Here we go. Okay, contractors now comprise a whopping 69% of the Department of Defense's total workforce. That's for the whole DoD. You've lost control of your army. You're now being run by private banksters, and those globalist banksters happen to be eugenicists, but 69% of your Defense Department aren't even people in uniform. Rather interesting, huh? And that's not just in the war zone, that's for the Pentagon entirely. Okay, from June 2009 to September 2009, there's been a 40% increase in Department of Defense contractors in Afghanistan. Mercs, right, mercenaries. Yeah, that's real good. Now torture's okay with you. I thought this country stood for something. You wusses. Where are the men out in my audience? I ought to be getting off their derrieres. Anyway, armed and private security contractors working with the Department of Defense in Afghanistan doubled, increasing from approximately 5,000 to 10,000. That was just in the, what, 6 months after this is June, so the old man had been in for a while, right? Remember, he was going to end the war, bring your troops home. Okay, so anyway, that means that the current U.S. total force in Afghanistan is approximately 189,000 personnel. 68,000 U.S. troops totally, and 121,000 contractors. So why that's important for you? Plus, as you saw, we're training the Afghan army to fight who? Okay? This is comedy. And meanwhile, they're bankrupting your country, all based on a lie they called 9/11. Rather interesting stuff. I don't know if you remember 2007, and I'll be quick with this, but Boeing aircraft fitted with illegal parts. Are Boeing aircraft fitted with illegal devices that could enable terrorists to remotely hijack airliners and crash them into targets? Well, it turns out Boeing had to pay a fine. Yes, you may forget, but back when Bush was in, we sold Boeings to China. Oh, yeah, and they just happen to have specific chips, gyro chips, okay, the same ones made by Raytheon on BEI that they use on Maverick missiles. Do you know anything about painting targets with lasers? Well, guidance systems? I used to test weapon systems, okay, for General Dynamics. I know a bit, and I'm here to tell you, things are starting to stink. But you, do you care? No, because you care about the Patriots. Not being a Patriot, but watching the Patriots. So here's a little clip for you. This one I'm going to, this is a speech by a veteran, and he'll tell you, what he saw and what he learned.
And I tried hard to be proud of my service, but all I could feel was shame. And racism could no longer mask the reality of the occupation. These were people, these were human beings. I've since been plagued by guilt anytime I see an elderly man, like the one who couldn't walk, who we rolled onto a stretcher and told the Iraqi police to take him away. I feel guilt anytime I see a mother with her children, like the one who cried hysterically and screamed that we are worse than Saddam as we forced her from her home. I feel guilt anytime I see a young girl, like the one I grabbed by the arm and dragged into the street. We were told we were fighting terrorists. The real terrorist was me, and the real terrorism is this occupation. Racism within the military has long been an important tool to justify the destruction and occupation of another country. It has long been used to justify the killing, subjugation, and torture of another people. Racism is a vital weapon employed by this government. It is a more important weapon than a rifle, a tank, a bomber, or a battleship. It is more destructive than an artillery shell, or a bunker buster, or a Tomahawk missile. While all those weapons are created and owned by this government, they are harmless without people willing to use them. Those who send us to war do not have to pull a trigger or lob a mortar round. They do not have to fight the war, they merely have to sell the war. They need a public who is willing to send their soldiers into harm's way. They need soldiers who are willing to kill and be killed without question. They can spend millions on a single bomb, but that bomb only becomes a weapon when the ranks of the military are willing to follow orders to use it. They can send every last soldier anywhere on earth, but there will only be a war if soldiers are willing to fight. And the ruling class, the billionaires who profit from human suffering, care only about expanding their wealth, controlling the world economy. Understand that their power lies only in their ability to convince us that war, oppression, and exploitation is in our interest. They understand that their wealth is dependent on their ability to convince the working class to die to control the market of another country. And convincing us to kill and die is based on their ability to make us think that we are somehow superior. Soldiers, sailors, Marines, airmen have nothing to gain from this occupation. The vast majority of people living in the U.S. have nothing to gain from this occupation. In fact, not only do we have nothing to gain, but we suffer more because of it. We lose limbs, endure trauma, and give our lives. Our families have to watch flag-draped coffins lowered into the earth. Millions in this country without health care, jobs, or access to education must watch this government squander over $450 million a day on this occupation. Poor and working people in this country are sent to kill poor and working people in another country to make the rich richer. And without racism, soldiers would realize that they have more in common with the Iraqi people than they do with the billionaires who send us to war. I threw families onto the street in Iraq, only to come home and find families thrown onto the street in this country, in this tragic and unnecessary foreclosure crisis. We need to wake up and realize that our real enemies are not in some distant land. They're not people whose names we don't know and cultures we don't understand. The enemy is people we know very well and people we can identify.